Welcome and thank you for joining Growing Bright, a podcast brought to you by Modern Parents Society. I'm Katie Haythorne and I'm thrilled to be your host today. Have you ever wished you could just sit down and have a heart-to-heart conversation with an experienced homeschool parent who has been through it all? Well, you're in for a treat. In this episode, we'll be hearing the inspiring story of a special guest who not only homeschooled 4 children from elementary through high school, but also built a successful business during that journey. I'm delighted to introduce Elmarie Hyman, the founder of Learn Beyond the Book and the author of the curriculum Where's the Money? With a master's degree and over 25 years in education, Elmarie is truly awe-inspiring. For a sneak peek, Elmarie will be sharing a few expert tips and insights on setting realistic homeschooling goals, overcoming common worries and fears, as well as providing a glimpse into the future of homeschooling and the educational resources available to parents today. So grab your favorite pen and notebook and lean in to be inspired by one of the best in the homeschool community. Here's a warm welcome to Elmarie Hyman. Hi, Elmarie. How are you?
I'm good, and you?
Oh, good.
Awesome.
Did you have a nice weekend?
It was awesome. Yeah, I actually came back from Berkeley. I went to visit my son, and then I got back on Saturday night late. So yesterday was like a relaxing day, trying to get back to, being able to think and do things. It's very
Good.
relaxing. How about you?
That's so nice. Well, we were having a very nice family weekend and then put the kids to bed. And of course, late last night, about 9:30, of course, they all hop out of bed and that's long past their bedtime. And sure enough, my little one is 7 and Vince, he ran back to his bed and somehow tripped at 9:30 at night. And we're upstairs finally having our quiet time watching a movie. And all of a sudden, my older son comes up the stairs and he's like, Mom, Vince has a cut. And I was like, has a cut? So we go running down. His face was covered in blood. Eye cut open, head cut open.
No.
I don't know how this child, he ran into the dresser and, my husband was calm. I'm not very calm when I see that much blood, but he wiped him up and he was okay. He didn't need stitches, it looks like.
Oh,
so he's okay today.
Yeah, they do. It does bleed so much when it's on their heads. I remember one of our students did fell and it was over by its eye and it was just blood everywhere. And it wasn't even bad, like he was smiling, talking as if nothing was even wrong. But he's a sweet little kid and he was so adorable. But we're like, oh my gosh, it looks like you might want to check on it, but it was fine without stitches. So yeah, it's scary though. Oh my gosh.
It's a lot. So
A
and
little too much
funny
adventure
time of
for
night when I know when they're supposed to be in bed, but
Yeah, I
it all
know.
worked out.
Oh gosh. How old are you kids? Like 7 and what's the other ages?
7 and almost 10.
Oh, okay. Oh, they're
Yeah.
so young.
So they're still kind of young. I feel like they're getting big so fast. It's going by way
Yeah,
too
that's
fast, but
true.
they're good ages.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Gosh,
Yeah.
my kids are so old, I can't get over it. My baby is 21. So it's like
Oh,
between
wow.
29 and 21. There's 4 of them. Can't believe it. It makes me feel old when I realize how old they are. I'm like, wait, I am that age. What do you mean? In my
Yes,
head, I feel like 25 or something.
no,
So,
you are awe-inspiring. So to me, and so many of our
oh,
listeners. So thank you for joining the show. I know that you have so
welcome.
much wisdom and experience to share with us. Just to briefly summarize for our listeners what I hope that we can talk about today, our main topic. I know you're very passionate about helping others gain an approach to really facing these real emotions that we have, like fears and worries that come up, not only for new parents starting out, but even expert parents, as you know,
Yeah.
throughout the whole journey, you face that. And then I hope at the end that we'll still have time to maybe hear your insight as to what you expect to see in the future for how homeschooling is kind of trending, how it's what it's going to look like in the future, how
Yeah,
if we have time to get on that, because I know that would be very
yeah.
inspiring. And and encouraging. And then, but first, before we start all that, I have to know how did you manage not only raising four beautiful young adults, but home educating them and becoming an entrepreneurial woman in business? How did you do this? You have a school now of 500 students, right?
Yeah. We
Yeah.
served 500 kids, and yeah, oh my gosh, it's a long story. I grew up in South Africa, very traditional, very, I would say militaristic kind of schooling. And just kind of parroted, like just do whatever they tell you. Don't make too much, don't ruffle any feathers, just do what they tell you. Don't really think either. And
Mm.
fast forward to 1993 when I moved to the United States and found out that there was such a thing as homeschooling. And I had by that point already have a degree and everything, so in accounting. So I ended up meeting this family who I was homeschooling, and their kids seemed so happy. I was like, what? This is not, how is it possible to actually enjoy learning? That seems like a contradiction in terms. And so I kind of started asking her a lot of questions. Poor woman had to repeat so many things to me so many times. I remember asking her what HSLDA stood for probably 20 times. I could just not remember the letters in order. I was like, wait, what is that again? The lawyers that help
I think we can
homeschoolers.
all relate with that. We can
So
definitely
yeah, there's
relate. Yeah.
so much to learn when you're first starting out.
Hmm.
So my kids were kind of little babies at the time when I started researching homeschooling. And so then we ended up homeschooling, and all four of them were homeschooled the whole way through. Two of them at some point kind of thought about maybe they want to go to school, they want more friends, and decided against it by realizing they're gonna have to get up really early in the morning. At the time, they were getting up a little later and like more
Oh,
normal
yeah.
teenage hours. And the other one decided that she had enough actually other activities that, like helped her find enough friends that she didn't really need more. And she actually had experiences with public school students in a different setting. She just found a lot of drama and a lot of meanness amongst the girls. And she was just like,
Hmm.
yeah, I don't really
Hmm.
want to do that.
Hmm.
So they ended up being homeschooled, all four of them. And while we were doing that, I mean, that it was challenging. I would say when they reached about 10, the first two were about 10, there was like a 5 year gap. So as soon as the younger ones were actually starting school, the older ones were about 10. And we were like, I was like, I don't know how to do this. There's too many things. There's too many people that I have to get to. And I don't know, there's not enough time in a day to also cook and clean and do all the things you need to
Hmm.
do. So we joined a co-op, a homeschool co-op that I found out about. And that was like a lifesaver because the younger kids would go with one parent and the older kids with another, and then we would swap around and we would kind of each just teach what we were good at and what we were interested in and inspired to teach. And so out of that, eventually, I was still teaching some classes in my home, and but we would be driving from one parent's house to the next, to the next, to the next. It was like always just a lot of driving going on. And also then at some point we were mostly doing it at my home. And it was just a lot to have to keep up with every week. There's going to be a
Yes.
bunch of people coming over, have to clean the whole house. It was like a lot of extra
Wow.
things that I felt like, wow, this is a lot.
Hmm.
And we also in California, where I am, have homeschool charter schools. So they are virtual schools. They give funding to parents to be able to do any educational things that they have vendors for. So people were starting to say like, oh, I wish I could just pay with my vendor with my money from the charter school. And you could only do that to vendors
Mm.
that are publicly open to the public, like there's a bunch of requirements. So I decided, okay, you know what, I do need to earn some money at this point. I had to start earning some money. And my youngest one was 9. The other ones were a little bit older. And my main, well, there were so many different, motivations for starting it. One was to not have to drive so much, have control over my own schedule a little bit more, have them all in one place because my older ones at this point were taking community college courses. So I had to balance community college
Wow.
courses with schedules, with my schedule of teaching, with my younger one's schedule of learning. It's just like, oh
Oh
my
my
gosh,
goodness.
this is crazy.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay, if I can have them all with me in one area, we can make this work a little bit better. Plus, they also I knew that my daughter was very social and she really needs friends and she really wants a lot of friends. So I knew that, we needed more social activities and friends to hang out with. So it kind of served all those purposes, but it was um it was a lot of work. I always tell it people that learn me on the book as my fifth child because you basically babysit it just like a kid, from the beginning. And it
Mhm.
only now is like a teenager, and now it's like barely, so like where I don't have to watch it every 5 seconds. And other people are helping me with it. So, just like
Wow.
managing the sites and stuff because we have multiple locations in person. So it's
Wow.
really yeah, it was a challenge, but I am very grateful that I did have the accounting background because that did help me to kind of be able to make a budget and kind of think through like the business side of things a little bit.
Mhm.
But it still was just a lot of work. And
Yes.
um, it was so great because it was like kind of a win-win on all fronts. Like my kids were benefiting, I was benefiting, I was working very hard, but it was benefiting them all at the same time. If I was doing a
Mhm.
totally separate job, it might have been a little bit different. My experience might have been different, but it was kind of like almost like a family business in that sense. Like they were part of it in
Mhm.
every
Mhm.
way. My older son actually taught there. My daughter eventually worked at the front desk. So at different
Wow.
times, different
That's
ways, it
amazing.
has benefited them. So yeah, that's kind
That's
of how it
so
all
amazing. And
started.
tell us a little bit about your school. What does your school
Yeah,
offer
sure.
now to the community?
Yeah, so Learn Me on the Book is like people call us a school all the time, but it's kind of like a homeschool resource center is what we call it, where it's not officially a school, but people come for different subjects. So we kind of have a la carte classes. I always say it's a little bit like a college, community college for kids, where you pick and choose what you want to take. And you can go with whichever passions, or you can decide, okay, I really want some help with math or English or science or whatever, one of the core subjects that the parents don't necessarily feel like they're experts in. They want to have like someone else teach it. So they can sign up for whichever classes they're interested in, and then they come and go as the classes happen throughout the week. Some people decide that they want to be there for like a day, so they pick back-to-back classes and they stay for the, few hours, and then they have lunch there and they have fun times with their friends, like break times in between classes. So we have at this point over 300 classes set up for the all the locations. We have three locations in the fall, one in Newhall, one in Northridge, and one in Woodland Hills in California. And then we're also doing a bunch of Zoom classes for people in other states. And we're working on a small location in Arizona, in Phoenix. So that's
Wow.
like in the making.
Remarkable. That is so
So
remarkable.
I
Wow.
love, yeah, it's so
Amazing.
exciting to be able to
Yeah.
start duplicating some of these things with the help of, you have to have someone on the floor, on the ground that can help the families day to day, because I can't be there obviously in every location all the time. So I have to find people to
Good people.
have my
Yeah.
vision that would want to be part of our organization and help people. My daughter has the saying that I love is she always says your vibe attracts your tribe. Like it's almost like the people already there are so amazing, so they attract other. There are more people that they know. They would refer people to me, and people would find us who are of the same mindset that education should be an enjoyable,
Hmm.
wonderful thing that you do for the
Hmm.
rest of your life.
Hmm.
So it's very exciting to be surrounded by so many people like that. It's inspiring too
And
to me.
it's inspiring that you've stuck with it after your kids have gone on and graduated. It
Yes.
shows that you're truly passionate about it, and
Oh, I
the
love it.
homeschool community needs people like you doing this and growing and expanding. I love to hear that you're doing online Zooms that people in the outside areas can participate in as well. So how
Yeah, I
wonderful.
honestly do. I love, I always say, like, if someone told me a few years ago before way before I started the business that I would ever be doing any of this, I would just have thought, no, they're crazy. But I ended up going and getting a master's degree in at Antioch University, and the specialization was transformative learning communities. I became really passionate about different kinds of educational alternatives that are just there's a lot out there. There's a lot of different ones, but it is a challenge. Like I just came back from two conferences where we had a lot of founders, and we all have the same little, problems that we have to deal with. And it's helpful to have a community of people also that are in the same boat as you, and they kind of we can
Mm-hmm.
help each other. Like, well, I've tried this or that, and it's helping each other to help make it more sustainable so more people can continue. It's not
Mm-hmm.
just for their own
That's great.
kids,
Yeah.
which is
Well,
the
thank
fear.
you. Thank you
Yeah,
so much
yeah,
for sharing all of that
yeah.
insight and I think it's inspiring to moms and dads who approach homeschooling and think, but I have to work. I don't know how to juggle all of
Yes,
this. It shows that you can be successful if you put your mind to it.
yes,
There are and you can have a
yeah,
happy life. It doesn't have to
yes.
be grueling. It,
Miserable.
it can be a life you thrive at. And I just love hearing that.
Yes,
So
I do. I actually our program makes it possible for a lot of parents to work part-time because they
mm,
come like say
mhm,
2 or 3 days a week, or the dad maybe has one kind of job and the mom has a different kind of job. So
mhm.
they kind of tag team and use us as the place where they can have the kids learn while they're working for some of it. So they don't have
It's
to
great.
do everything, they don't have to prepare everything. It's
Hmm.
like really
Hmm.
saves a ton of time, especially if you don't like the
Yeah.
subject. Like you don't want to
Right.
have that spill over to your kid. You want someone who actually loves it to teach it. Maybe they'll actually fall in love with it too. So that's the
Right.
idea is
Right.
our teachers only teach the things that they love to teach. They don't teach
Mm. Wow.
like a whole bunch of things that they don't really enjoy. That's ridiculous to me. I don't know why we have that model in schools. It's just so
Right.
counterintuitive. Like it's just I understand it's probably money, but it's not really successful. I mean, if you don't like math, you're gonna teach it a certain way. If you love math, you
Hmm.
teach a different way. So yeah, it's very
It's such a true point.
interesting. Yeah.
Well, to shift gears,
Mhm.
we're all just dying to know the tips that you've learned over the years, as so many of us struggle approaching homeschool with all the fears and all the worries that start,
Mhm.
especially to a
Mhm.
new prospective parent right now, as so many people are considering homeschool in our
Yes.
time.
Yeah. Oh boy, I have a lot of I guess if I always think, what would I have told myself before I started if I knew what I know now? And I always think I would have told myself not to stress so much, that kids are naturally wanting to learn. Like they learn literally all the time, whether they're doing things that seem like educational or they're just playing a game or they're running around chasing their friend. They're learning every step of the way. And actually, being in a homeschool charter school has taught me how to phrase the learning that's happening. For example, we would go to a beach day, like, well, you think, "Oh, okay, we're going to have a fun day." Yeah, well, you're also learning about the ocean. You're learning about potentially about shells. You might go to a tide pool. You can see all the animals in the tide pool. You can look them all up. You can take pictures now with Google Lens. You can figure it out on the spot. Okay, what is this?
So true.
There's just so many resources that you can use, and you can learn literally 24/7. Well, maybe not while you're sleeping, but even then, your dreams might teach you something. But there's just so many opportunities to learn that if you can think of homeschooling as a way of life rather than an activity that you're doing, we're doing school. No, school is your life. Life is learning, and there are certain subjects that you have to master eventually to be able to get to university, if that's your plan, that you will learn it. It's not, I with my first child, I made the mistake of trying to prove that homeschooling is working great. So he was just a regular kid, and I was like pushing, pushing, pushing to get him like a year ahead of everybody of his age. It's like, oh my goodness. I realized it, thank goodness, at some point, like, oh, wait a second, I need to back off. Like he's not enjoying this. But then on the other hand, my one of my other kids were very advanced. So I was able to let him just advance and do classes that are way beyond the grade level that he would have been able to do in any other setting. And so he was able to get a pilot license at 17. So he was just like very
Wow.
motivated to learn specific things. So if you kind of listen to your kids and uh, observe them very carefully, kind of see how they learn, what's their favorite way of learning, Um, there's a great book called Discover Your Child's Learning Style by Maria Emma Willis. And that book is
Mm,
super helpful because it actually teaches you, it goes through different modalities, all kinds of stuff, not just the typical auditory, visual, kinesthetic. It's way more involved. And once you can understand how your kid learns best, you can find things for them to learn in that way so that they actually are more
mm,
efficiently learning rather than
mhm,
just trying to do your own teaching style that you're used to. I feel
mhm,
like parents have to de-school themselves, kind of realize that you don't have to just school the way that you were taught. It's
mm.
actually probably not the best way. And you might even know it because you didn't learn very well that way. I, on the other hand, learned very well that way. I was very much like the kind of learner that did well in school, but my kids were completely different from me. And normally they're completely different from you. So you're going to probably have to adjust the teaching style to their learning style, not your own. So
I
there's a
love
lot of
that.
trial
Yeah.
and error, you know,
Hmm.
but it's
Hmm.
still in the end, it's not like if you're in it for the long haul, I always say people figure out your mission and your goal. Because if you're in it for the long haul, you're going to get to everything that they need to know to live their lives. If you're planning to put them back in school, you're going to have to follow a different approach to kind of try to keep them up to the rate that the public school kids are at, because you don't know when you're going to, maybe you have an idea like, okay, in this grade, they're going to go back to school. So you kind of have to work towards your goal eventually, but to
That
to
makes sense.
stress a
Hmm.
little less, be a little less hard on yourself because you are only one human. You know, if you're worried about whether you're doing it right, you're probably doing it right. It's usually the parents who really care who think that they're not good enough. And I'm like, oh, you're doing such a good job. Make sure you
Hmm.
have a very good homeschool community that builds that very intentionally, because that is the thing that will keep you going through the hard days. You will have hard days. Everybody has hard days. And that's another thing. People always just see the beautiful picture of the child sitting on the lawn reading a book under the tree.
Right,
No,
right.
that's not every day and it's not every child. So don't hold yourself to other people's standards, you know.
And nowadays we have all these Facebook groups. It's so easy to network online.
Exactly.
It's the social aspect is so much easier probably than you had
Oh,
it 20, 15, 20
yes.
years ago. So
Yeah,
we don't have
totally.
any excuse. Yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, and be consistent. Like if you're trying to build a community, just with any friendship, you have to be consistent. You have to work on it. You have to show up for the events and you have to be like go
Right.
frequently enough.
Hmm.
Sometimes people come once, they're like, I don't really know if I like this, and then they just never come back. And I'm like, okay, well,
Hmm.
maybe stick it out for like 3 weeks because there's multiple different people come on different days. So you might find your new best friend at the second or the third park day, or
Right.
just be
I
a
agree.
little bit tenacious about
I,
it.
I agree. It takes
Keep
a
it up.
little bit of grit when you're diving into
Yes.
a group that's already perhaps meshed with,
Yes, very
yeah.
true. And they all have their own little culture too. Like
Yes.
sometimes you do get to a
Yes.
group and you can immediately tell, okay, my kids don't fit in here at all, and I don't fit
Right,
in
right.
here. But then other ones, you might be like, I'm not sure. Then just keep going, until you find out if you are or aren't meshing with them. But yeah, it is true. It's harder for people who are introverted who don't really have that urge to go out and look for people, but your kid might be
Yes.
extroverted.
Hmm.
So
Hmm. It's
you
true.
have to,
Hmm.
if you're really into it for the kids, you have to think about their needs just as much
Hmm.
as your own. Not completely neglecting yourself at all. I would say that's
Hmm.
very dangerous as well, because then you would burn out at some point and you would just be
Hmm.
like, okay, I can't do this anymore. But
Hmm.
to really look and see what kind of kids they are. I always tell people I really think everybody in our world should have a child development class at some point. Just an informal, read a bunch of books if you want, or take an actual community college class maybe, just to kind of know what level that you can expect of any kid. Not that they have to be at
Hmm.
that level, but sometimes grandparents or even dads sometimes who are skeptical of homeschooling, they'll quiz the kids on these ridiculous questions that are like, I mean, maybe high school level because that's all they remember. And the kid
Yes.
is 5. It's like, you're not
Right.
gonna be able to answer this. Oh my goodness. So yeah, it's it might be nice to just have a good idea of what kinds of things to expect at that age. Even those books that, what the child should know in this grade or that grade, they could be helpful. Just kind of like an idea of
That's great
what you
advice.
probably
Yeah.
should be covered. Or the state standards, if you have state standards, depending on where you're at, I'm sure they all have it. It's usually
Hmm.
on their website. The California Department of Education, for example, has their
Hmm.
own little area where there's state standards. So if you want to know what people do in public school, you can always go look over there and kind of like, oh, okay. But then also don't expect your kid to follow every single thing. They're probably going to be advanced in something and this, the same as
Right.
everybody else at a different thing or lower. It doesn't matter. Like in the
Right.
end, we'll all learn what we need.
Right.
There's nobody who had a caring environment that cannot read, when they leave high school. If
Mm-hmm.
there's a caring person who is going to help them and make sure that there isn't some learning issues, because that's sometimes a problem with homeschoolers is they don't really have a measuring stick, like how are you going to know if your kid maybe does have dyslexia or something else that
Hmm.
he needs
Hmm.
special help with. And that is something to just like keep in mind if you see there's like
Right.
no interest in reading or they absolutely
Hmm.
resist it and they're 10 years old, then maybe it's really, really hard. And maybe there's some issue that you might want to just have a check, because you don't want to have the kids suffer for no good reason. Like there's no reason for
Yeah.
that either. But you can go at their pace. This is the beauty of homeschooling. You don't have to rush it through. It's
That's
great.
great advice. That's an excellent tip. I agree.
Oh, good.
Well, thank you. If you can think of anything else that you would add to that, otherwise, due to just making sure we are on time, I wanted to kind of just pick your brain if you are seeing any changes coming in the pipeline for homeschool or how things are shifting. You meet so many families, so many modern families right
Yeah.
now who are homeschooling. What are they saying? What are you seeing
Yeah,
kind of
that's
for
a
the
such a good
future?
question. Yeah, it's such a good question. There is actually a huge change. I feel like we used to have only homeschoolers who want to homeschool because they feel like, homeschooling is the best thing since sliced bread. Like that was what I was like. Most like typical homeschool parents. But then we now have a lot of parents who just the public school does not work for their kid. Sometimes there's even parents who homeschool because of vaccination rules in different states. Like there's just a lot of reasons why people are homeschooling where they don't necessarily want to teach everything. So we have a lot of those families whose kids come and take classes with us because they don't really want to teach every subject. They're very
Mhm.
definitely different kind of homeschooler for different reasons. And I think that's going to keep growing because the public schools are failing more and more kids. And I mean, after COVID, it pretty much doubled the homeschool population. So I think it's going to keep going, especially now with the different states who have the ESA programs or voucher programs or tax credits. It's definitely going to inspire people to do different things and not just stay in public school. So I feel like a lot of them probably going to pick homeschooling, but I feel almost like hybrid schooling is a better word for it because they're not doing everything at home. They're outsourcing a lot of stuff. So that's one thing that I see for sure changing. It's already
Interesting.
happening.
Yeah.
And the other major thing I think is with all the new things that AI offers. I think there's a lot of benefits and things that can help homeschool parents. I just told my teachers about a new program that I just found out about, a website called eduaid.ai. And you can literally put prompts in there for what you want, and it comes up with a lesson plan. It can come up with flashcards, worksheets, games,
Wow.
tests. Like it has like so many options. I'm like, and it's like $6 a month for the paid version.
Wow.
You can even do it for free. So for like they limit how
Well,
many
that's
submissions you can have.
interesting
But
timing because we're all
yeah,
in that planning mode coming in to the new
I
year.
know.
So
I was
thank you for
like telling
that.
my teachers, I'm like, hey, you guys, there's this amazing thing.
Amazing.
And then there's another one where you put the prompt in and it just generates slideshows for you if you have like if you're a teacher or something. It's just
Wow.
there's so many. I think it's obviously going to just keep growing and all those
Hmm.
those options.
Hmm.
So to kind of just reprogram how we think about education even a little more than we've already done, because we're coming out of ourselves out of public school mostly. Actually, I'm meeting more and more parents who were homeschooled who are now homeschooling, which makes me super excited. But typically for most of us, we came out of a traditional background, so we already kind of shifted to learn like, oh wait, we don't have to do education the same way that we did. But now with AI, we're going to have to shift even more and be like, oh, wait, like someone said, the jobs that my kid's going to have doesn't even exist yet. So we have to
Wow.
train our kids how to learn and how to think and how to judge information. Really, that's like the main things. I feel like you have to learn to read and write. But even the writing now, you can get help with, like you can teach kids how to use these tools to help them. But it's the thinking part that needs to always be there. Otherwise, how are we different from a machine?
Right,
So
right.
it's definitely, it's a very exciting time to live in, and very like a little scary because you don't know exactly where everything's going to go if you've watched too many sci-fi movies. But like other than that, it's very exciting to have all these potential help that can just cut down on your hours of preparation by, oh my gosh, I can't even tell you. It's within seconds. You have what you normally might have sat there to plan for days, and then you can edit it and you can
Wow.
do whatever you want with it. You don't have to use it exactly like that, but it's a starting point, and it's like it's free, and it's, yeah, I'm amazed. I'm like,
Incredible.
wow, it's
Yeah.
gonna help us. And there's even some, I know Khan Academy has even built in some tutoring into their like online math program and English and everything. So it's really amazing. I always
Yeah.
think we also do offer tutoring and music lessons at Learn Me on the Book. And so I always think, oh my gosh, they're gonna put us out of work. But then I also think about the human aspect of a human sitting there and seeing exactly where you're having a problem, and then like being able to help you. I think that is still a big benefit, but it is amazing how much you can learn just with this help of like virtual tutors. That's part of the
Yeah.
free program.
Yeah. It is.
It's
It
amazing.
is. Yeah. We're using
So
a AI app called Readability, and my
yes.
son is learning to read, and I now can let him have 15, 20 minutes of sitting there with the iPad, and he reads a sentence in a little book, and it tells him if he's pronouncing the words right or not. If he struggles too
Mm,
much, he can push the button on the word and it will read it to him. But he
oh my
he has
gosh, that's
advanced
amazing.
light years since we've started using it,
Yeah.
and it's
And they don't
incredible.
take it
It's incredible.
personally.
No,
Sometimes they
he's
take
actually
it so
more
personally.
willing. He's more
Yes.
willing to sit there with that robot than me telling him.
Yes. Yeah,
We
because it feels super
do the
personal to
transfers, but
them.
it's just been so
Yeah.
beneficial. I agree.
That's
AI
amazing to
is a
hear,
game
like
changer.
firsthand experience. Like my kids obviously were
Yeah.
kind of done with it before that happened, but it's kind of
Uh-huh.
amazing to hear because I just see it and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that's so great that I have found that with writing and math and reading, those three main things that you have to learn, sometimes the kids have a hard time with the parent correcting them. They feel it very
Yeah. Yeah.
personally,
Right.
and so often people would put them in classes with us for those particular subjects because they specifically feel like, okay, my kid
Mm-hmm.
really, really
Mm-hmm.
needs help, and I don't want to have a battle with them. Your relationship with your kid is more important than, if they can do a particular skill that someone else could help them with. So
Absolutely.
I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it is a tricky part for a homeschool parent to be the parent and the like friend, and also
Yeah.
the disciplinarian, and also the teacher. Like it's a lot of roles in one person. So
Yeah.
that is,
It is.
outsource whatever you have the hardest time with, because your relationship with them is like number one, because that's going to last for the rest of their lives. So
That's
yeah.
great. Well,
hmm I think that's all my
wonderful.
future predictions.
I am so appreciative. I know our listeners are so appreciative. You are
Oh,
awe-inspiring
welcome.
for all that you've accomplished, and
Oh, thank
your
you.
kids must just be such happy young adults to have you in their
That
lives.
is
It's so
they're
great.
that is the most amazing thing, is that you can actually focus on the happiness of your child and the well-being of your child while you're homeschooling. I feel
The
like it's
ultimate.
such a forgotten thing in regular school.
Yeah.
Like they don't
Mhm,
care how you feel about any of this stuff. They're just like,
mhm,
you just bite your tongue
mm,
and do it, you know? And it's like,
mhm, mhm.
no, it doesn't have to be that way,
Right,
you know?
right.
It's just really
Tell
sad.
our listeners where they can find you, your
Oh,
website
sure.
or your best email, whichever way you'd like
Yeah.
them to reach out if they want to find Zooms in these local classes.
Yeah, our website is learnbeyondthebook.com. It's a very long name, and we've been called all kinds of things. People type it wrong all the time, so I'm like, learn beyond the book, the only one book.com. And then my email address is just learnbeyondthebook@gmail.com, or you can go through the website.
Perfect.
There's a contact us page too. So yeah, I would love to hear from anybody who's listening in. I would love to hear any questions or anything you feel like, just send me an email. I'll be happy to help.
That's perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
Thank you for
you're
joining the
so
show and for all
welcome.
of your insight and wisdom and experience. We are so
Oh, you're
appreciative. So
welcome. You're
thank
welcome. It's
you.
very nice to meet you guys. Have a fun school year.
You too. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Bye.
Bye. Thank you all for joining me today on this episode of Growing Bright. It has been a pleasure being your host today. Before we wrap up, I invite you to discover the vibrant community within Modern Parent Society, where families from all walks of life come together to support, inspire, and grow together. As the founder of Modern Parent Society and a homeschool parent myself, I have experienced firsthand the need to have a network of homeschool friends dedicated to cultivating growth and friendships and sharing innovative educational resources together. That's why I created Modern Parent Society, a social community designed for forward-thinking families like you. It's a place where you'll find friendship, encouragement, and a sense of belonging. Connect with fellow homeschoolers from all walks of life, exchange ideas, and embark on this incredible educational adventure together. Find us at modernparentsociety.com. Register as a member and keep connected. Until next time, your friend and family advocate, Katie Haythorne. Take care.